Today I'm going to show you some video editing tips using iMovie. And iMovie is the video editing program that comes on every Mac. It's a very powerful program considering that you get it for free, and it's very inexpensive to upgrade each version now that everything is through the App Store. And you can do just about anything that you want to do with iMovie with a few exceptions. And then when you do sometimes more professional or higher end projects, you have to graduate to something like Final Cut or Adobe Premiere. But for this class, for our web design class, iMovie does everything you need to be able to do. And typically you're going to get your footage from something like your phone or a flip camera or something that's already in a digital format. If you're shooting on something that requires you to plug in a FireWire, you can also capture it from that as well, but I think in most cases you're going to be using a digital file. And like for example, if you're shooting something on your phone, I have an iPhone and I can shoot video on that. An easy way to get the footage from your iPhone into the computer is to plug it in via the USB and use the program that's called Image Capture. So under Applications, Image Capture, right here. And when you plug in your phone, it'll show up under Devices. And you'll be able to grab all those videos, pictures, whatever you have on your camera, and be able to save them onto the computer. And that's really a much more valuable way to go about handling it than trying to email videos to yourself, because they are quite large. So just plug in your USB and it should be able to recognize your phone or any kind of camcorder that you're using. In some cases, when you plug in a flip drive, it shows up actually on the desktop of your computer as its own drive, and you can get the files that way, just drag them onto the computer. But either way, get them onto the computer, and then you're able to import them into iMovie. So I'm going to close Image Capture down, and here's iMovie. And when you're ready to import files, you just come over here and you say Import, or you can go under File and say File, Import Media. Either one will work. And then you can click on the folders where your things are saved. So in terms of my username, I've got things in Documents. And I shot some video a few years ago when I was doing my musician talk show. And the person's name is Johnny Gowdy. He's a friend of mine. So I'm using some of the clips that I used from that show to show you how to edit. So I've got these Gowdy clips, and I would just select the ones that I want. And I can import multiple ones at a time by holding down the Command key and selecting the ones that I want. And then I would just say Import Selected. I can also import all if I want to say Import All. And then once they're imported, then I will see them, and when you import them, you'll import them into an event. So you'll name the event that you want to import them into. And you would do that up here, where you say Import Into. You would either pick the event you want to import them into, or you choose a new event. So once you get them, then they would be over here where you can actually view the clips. This is the clip viewer, and you can see the two clips that I put in here. I have one where he's talking to me, and I have one that's some performance footage that I want to intersperse with him talking. And then we can actually see the results of the video in the viewer here, but we want to put it in the timeline. It doesn't actually get into your movie unless you put this in a timeline. And I have already created a new movie here called Demo, but you would do this by saying File, New Movie, and picking no theme. Generally, you would not want any sort of design on it, although you can experiment with that. And you say no theme, and you say Create, and then you would have your own movie and be able to move the clips into the timeline to start editing. So I'm going to grab the clip of him talking, and if I double click on it, I can move the whole thing down to the timeline. And it goes here, and it starts at 0, and then we can hit the space bar to start listening to it.
I remember him saying to me, like, oh, you gotta play music, you don't want it.
So I know in this clip that there's a part where he starts talking about performing on stage and being a bit of a ham. So I need to go through the rest of the part where he's talking about meeting somebody at a Renaissance fair and get rid of that part. So there's a couple ways to do that. I can select the clip and I can grab the ends of it and I can bring it to where I need it to be. This is called non-destructive editing because I can always come back and get back what I had hidden. So let's just move it here and see where we are.
This whole music thing, you can do it all the time.
So he's still talking about that guy. Let's continue doing the non-destructive editing.
Because you're often like on the microphone saying funny things to the crowd. That's one of many reasons why people love Skyrocket.
That's an interesting thing, the Skyrocket thing. I've always had a very, I don't know what it is, I'm just a natural sort of ham person, but I feel...
So he's talking here about being a ham. So we found that portion in the video. And it's still starting at 0, so that's good. And then I want to point out that you can zoom the video in and out. And sometimes it's helpful to see it larger so you can make more precise editing cuts. And sometimes you see it smaller so you can see all your clips at once. So we've got this nice clip of him talking. We'll probably need to cut some things off at the end. And he says he's a ham. And then here is a video of him being a ham on stage. So we're going to drag that in. And just about the point where he says he's a ham, I want it to start showing the video up here. Now, you can apply this to your projects. Maybe you have somebody talking, and then you have a close-up on the hands up here. Or you have a wide shot. Or you have some other type of B-roll that shows some action going on. But you want the person to continue talking through all of it. So let's find the place where he says he's a ham.
I don't know what it is. I'm just a natural sort of ham person, but
So he says he's a ham person, roughly in this area. So I'm going to move this down to that right where he's talking about that. And I'm just hitting the space bar to get it to play. I want it to be a little further down with the ham.
I don't know what it is. I'm just a natural sort of ham person.
So then this video clip that I've put above here on the cutaway timeline kicks in. We no longer see him down here. He's still talking. We can't hear it because the music's a little bit loud. But to fix that, I can come over here and click on this clip. And up here, we have the volume control. And I want to say lower the volume of other clips. So I want to be able to hear him talking. We could adjust this in even more detail if we needed to, but we want to kind of hear the music and see the performance in the background. So let's see how that worked.
I'm just a natural sort of ham person, but I never am intimidated by being on stage. I'm never intimidated by having to say something to, a lot of people. In fact, I love it. It just makes me laugh.
So at this point, I want to be able to listen to the music a little bit louder and give it some time. And there's not exactly a feature in iMovie to let us do that. But first of all, I'm going to split this clip. So I'm doing a control click or a right click, and I'm going to split the clip because I want to split it here, which is another way to edit. And what I really want to do is take this piece of the clip and move it down. But iMovie won't let me do that. But I have learned that I can trick it. Use one of these titling slides, a plain one, and I'll drag this down and put it in here between the two. And it's actually taking up some space. I can make sure that I get rid of the text that's in this titling slide so it won't show up. And we'll just have a blank titling slide. We'll continue to see him dancing up here. And we can click on this clip and we can use non-destructive editing and make it the length of the rest of the clip of him performing. And we can just get that just right. We can even have him start talking again, maybe a little bit before the clip ends. And another technique that you can use is it's nice to be able to take the audio and have it fade in and out. And you do that with these little dots here at the top, here above the audio wave form that you see at the bottom of the clip because it's got the audio as well as the video attached to it. So if I just drag this little dot down a little bit, you might not be able to see it that well, but there's a line here that's saying that it's going to fade into that point and I also want it to fade out to that point. And move it down a little bit more. So let's hear this now.
I don't know what it is. I'm just a natural sort of ham person, but I feel I never am intimidated by being on stage. I'm never intimidated by having to say something to, you know, a lot of people. In fact, I love it. It just makes me laugh. It's fun.
And you do that quite well with Skyrocket because you're often like on the microphone saying funny things to the crowd.
So this point where he stopped, I want to drag this out and make sure we've got the full, him getting ready to start singing the Cheap Trick song. And then I want to get rid of a little bit more of the front of this because I'm talking and we're not quite at the point where I want him to continue picking up. So this is also a good place where we can do editing within a clip and not have it really show that we're editing within that clip, because now we've moved up here to this B-roll and we can start wherever we want to with the next clip. So I'm gonna drag this down a little bit.
You know, it's such a people that have such strengths all coming together.
So that's a nice place to start because he's talking a little bit more about Skyrocket. And so let's listen to that and see how the transition works.
You know, it's such a
I think I want him to start talking a little bit sooner, like as the music's still playing, so we have a nice transition.
You know, it's such a
and maybe have the fade be a little shorter. I'm going to drag this out a little bit so we can see more of this and work with it a little bit more.
You know, it's such a
So you could work with this as long as you want to get the effect of the performance piece going over the interview piece and then picking up again with the interview and then figuring out where you want to cut that off.
Really, we work around each other, you know, we work to each other's strengths.
So right here where he says we work to each other's strengths, I'm going to select the clip and drag it down to that point. We want to find that point again.
Each other, you know, we work to each other's strengths.
So that's where I want this to go, roughly to this right here.
Really, we work around each other, you know, we work to each other's strengths.
A little bit too short.
I've always found each other, you know, we work to each other's strengths.
So that's perfect. So this looks pretty good. Now there's some other things that we might want to do here. We might want to make this fade in with the audio. We might want to add a fading effect to occur at the beginning of each of these clips. And there's all these really cool effects up here. This one is the cutaway effect, so I can add a little fade in and fade out at the beginning for, you know, partially of a second. And let's see what that actually does.
Sort of ham person, but I feel
so that had a little bit more of a fade quality both on the front and the back.
You know,
see how that does like sort of a dissolve there to the cutaway. I really like that effect. There's a lot of other things up here that we can look at. If you need to change the color balance, if you need to adjust other things about the color correction, if you need to crop a clip, there are lots of effects associated with stabilizing shaky video, so you could try that. Under volume, if you need to, it's what's called ducking. If you have one clip selected and you want to lower the volume of the other clip, you could do that here, or you can manually adjust the percentage of the volume for an individual clip. And then there's some things for noise reduction and equalizer. I haven't played around with these a lot, but if you have problems with your audio, you might be able to try that. And you can increase the speed if we wanted it to be faster or slower. We can do that here, or even reverse it. So those are things you might want to play around with. And then there's always the opportunity to add effects And there are video effects, so if you wanted it to be sepia toned, or if you turn him down, because it previews what it looks like as you select each one. So you could select any one of these. There's like cartoon version, there's sepia, X-ray, just all different things that you could use. I would probably not use any of them. And then there's audio effects as well. Again, if we listen to the sound, there are different effects that you can try out. Cosmic, robot, muted. Robot might sound different if we have a person talking. So I don't really want any of these. And then the last thing here is just the information that lets you look at the duration, and you can adjust the duration of some of these clips. It's really helpful when it's something that you want to get a specific length. So this one is 6 seconds. If I wanted it to be longer or shorter, I could adjust that here. Then there are these transitions that we might want to use, and those you can put between clips. We've already sort of got a fading in effect on the cutaway, but I might want to fade in on the front end. And let's see what that looks like. So from black to that, and then the same thing on the end when it's over. I want it to fade out. And we could fade in between clips. And then we could put a title slide. Now I'll actually use a title slide. And I can either put it at the beginning like this and have it be the, the title. We would change the text. You just come in here and double click and start typing and change the text. So it will look like this. And would fade in to his talk. Or sometimes it's better to take the effect that you want for your title and put it on the clip so that you've got an actual title that actually goes on the video itself. So I think this is a little long. I'm going to select this, just the clip here, and I can go into the options up here and click on this information tab, and I can double click on this, and I can, if I want to make it 3 seconds, I can do that here. So it's a little bit shorter. So iMovie is saving this as we go so that we can always come back to our library and open a project. But what we want to do now is we want to export it. We want to share it. So we have File Share, or there's a share button over here that does exactly the same thing. And we have some choices here. We can go directly to YouTube. We can go directly to Facebook. But what I usually like to do is export a file of it to the computer and then put it up to those programs. So I have a choice of that. And so I have it saved on my computer. And you can come over here. I would unclick Add to Theater because you need an iCloud account for that. But you come over here and you would pick what format you want. We usually want video and audio for doing video. You can pick the resolution if you need a smaller size, but it's going to go to the resolution minimum of your, it's going to go to the actual resolution of the video that you shot. And then you can choose your quality. I'm just going to go with high for now. We can experiment with this best pro resolution, but I think high is going to give us what we want. And this new iMovie has optimized quite nicely that it doesn't take very long to export these files, not as long as it used to. This is a 42-second video, so let's see how long this takes. And I'm just going to save it here under Documents. And I had one before. So it's saving it. And we just have to wait a few seconds for it to do it. We'll get a little message, a little notification, and we just got it, that says that it was exported successfully. So we can say Show, and it will bring up our Finder, and then we can double click on that and have QuickTime open it. We can get a little preview of it.
I've always had a very, I don't know what it is, I'm just a natural sort of ham person, but I feel I never am intimidated by being on stage, and I'm never intimidated by having to say something to, a lot of people. In fact, I love it. It just makes me laugh. It's such a, people that have such strengths all coming together for a common purpose, and we work around each other, we work to each other's strengths.
So that's it. We're done. We could upload this to YouTube. We could do other things with it if we wanted to, but we now have an edited version of our movie. So it depends on your footage. It depends on what you get. It depends on your topic. But with what I've shown you today, you have pretty much every technique that you need to use to be able to edit your video.